during what will be a marker of our lifetime, the pandemic, we discovered that one of the most important things that we need, food, has become unaffordable. Not because of traditional competition, but because of corporate greed. Food is different than a luxury item. If you can't afford the latest iPhone or the latest gadgets in an automobile, you picked up a used one or a less expensive one. Juice, meat, tissue paper, cleaning supplies. It's difficult to do without these. It's difficult to just pick another one if they're all gouging you. In our history, monopolies have had to be addressed because steel or oil or rail or shipping had conspired to make costs and everyday life for the everyday American unaffordable. Today we face the same challenge, but we're facing it with food. Food costs and food profits have skyrocketed, making eating for the working class and low-income families, making eating a luxury. Something is wrong. Senator Robert, or Bob Casey as we know him, has been our senator since 2007. He fights every day for Pennsylvania families. He's a strong advocate for policies that improve health care and early learning of children and policies that will raise wages for the middle class and the working class. Senator Casey serves on 4 committees, including the Senate Finance Committee. I don't want to get into all the other ones. What I do want to say is that he has been here many times. We know him. He is part of North Philadelphia. The senator has issued 3 reports, which we have here, and they'll be available to you today. And all 3 of the reports show that the consumer of what I want to call life staples, I don't know if I could coin that term or copyright it, but life staples are the things we need for everyday life. And his reports show that if you're a consumer of life staples, you are paying far beyond what inflation, says you should be paying. We have created record profits for companies, unfortunately at the expense of rising hunger and the working class. We now have to choose which meals we're going to skip and which meals are going to not be healthy. First up will be Senator Casey, who as chair of the Subcommittee on Children, Families, Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. Did you get that? That's quite a long title. But as chair of that committee, he's brought the phenomenon called greedflation to light. The senator was going to come up, and we're going to ask him, why did you introduce these reports, and how does greedflation affect the American family, Pennsylvania family? Senator?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
For having
Thank
us.
you.
I might just sit for this? Or
Yeah, sure. You can do whatever you like, Senator.
Well, I want to make sure, because I'm a panelist, I don't want to stand if they're not. Oh, I think there's a handout mic there. Okay. Is this on? There we go. Thanks. Well, thanks very much, everyone, for being here. And I want to start by thanking Reverend Cortez and the team here at Esperanza. As I was coming in, I was talking to Misha and Chris on our staff about what's in this building, because they were pointing out all the things that happen here. And I said, there's pretty much nothing that doesn't happen here. There's pretty much no service, no benefit to the community that isn't under this roof, and I'm just grateful for the work that you all do. In a very simple way, the best way for me to say it is, folks here at Esperanza do God's work, and we're grateful that you're willing to do that every day, whether it's lifting up young people and giving them an education or an opportunity, or whether it's helping the most vulnerable among us, our families, whether it's helping older citizens, whatever it is, you're lifting up the community, and I'm so grateful. I knew Reverend Cortez when he was a younger man, a couple decades ago, and he's still He's still pretty young, but he's never lost that intensity and enthusiasm for those who sometimes don't have a voice. And I'm so grateful he's willing to be that advocate for so many Philadelphians. I'm also honored to be here today with this panel and to talk about this issue called greedflation, which is an issue, as the professor was saying on the way in, that economists have been aware of for a good while, but not enough public officials have talked about it. Well, those days are over. We're going to talk about it a lot. We've already started. We have 3 reports. I won't delve into the details of every one, but the first one is, with the green cover, is just entitled Greedflation. And that's the first one we did a couple of weeks ago back in November. The subheading here is how corporations are making record profits on the backs of American families. The good news here is we can document this. This isn't just like a theory or a point of view. We can document how the rise in corporate profits has led to higher prices at the grocery store and in other contexts as well. But I think that's where most people see it, at the grocery store. So in the period between 2020 and 2022, corporate profits went up 75%. And yet some of those same big companies, when their corporate profits were going up and they were jacking up their prices, were pointing a finger at inflation, saying, oh, this is terrible. We have to do this because of inflation. No, they didn't. They didn't have to do that. They didn't have to jack up their prices. Their profits were sky high. Their costs weren't going up at that level. We know this. We can document this. And we can even document what it means to an individual family in a state like Pennsylvania. So that was the first report, kind of laying out the problem and putting a spotlight on it, and also talking about ways that we could bring a measure of relief to families. There's no reason why, when boneless chicken is up over those 3 years, 20 through 2022, boneless chicken up 38%, bacon up like 29%, pork chops up 28%, and we have some other examples in the most recent report. But when that is happening, a lot of families who might have kept that job or gotten a job may have had a little increase in their wages, and they feel pretty good about both. Having a job might be having higher wages or earning higher wages. But if the prices at the grocery store keep going up, they're falling further and further behind. And it's about time we pointed it out. And it's evident to me that this is a problem for families, number one. And number two, it's evident to me we can do something about it. In Washington, what we should do is, on the consumer end, to try to give people more opportunity to be able to deal with those higher prices. The child tax credit that we passed or I should say the version of the child tax credit that we passed in 2021, gave families, especially a lot of low-income and middle-income families, for the first time, extra money in their monthly budget to pay for their household expenses. Mostly food. Food is what they were using those extra dollars for. $430 or $40 or $50 a month. But that increased benefit only lasted 6 months. Only in Washington could you find a way to help families pay for higher food prices and reduce child poverty by more than 40% and then not continue it. So we have to continue that version of the child tax credit, which is not the law today, and that's hurting families. The second thing we have to do is raise the minimum wage. The minimum wage at the national level has not been raised since 2009. 2009. That's an insult to families and to workers. But on the other end of this, we also have to hold major corporations accountable. They're not paying their fair share in taxes. As I said, they've had record profits, and yet a lot of them get away with so much when it comes to not having any competition. We need to enforce the antitrust laws more robustly. We have to break down some of this consolidation, where big food companies come together and form one big operation, or two or three, for the whole country, in less than competition and accumulating all that wealth and all that power. We've got to break that down as well. And we've got to make sure that we continue to hold corporations accountable for these higher prices. And one of the best ways to do that is to point it out to more Americans and to policymakers. Now, I've already heard people on the other side of the debate who spend their days in Washington fighting only for big companies and not for families and workers. They're howling about this. They are really mad, and they're condemning what I'm doing. They're trying to stifle the voice of the people, but they're not going to win this fight. We're going to win this fight. We're going to make sure that people know what's happening in those grocery stores because of those big multinational corporations. On the one hand, getting huge tax benefits, and on the other hand, jacking up prices while they're getting those benefits and having record profits. So I'm just grateful you're here to listen and to have a conversation about this. And I'll just conclude with this. There are two more reports. The second report was stuffing their pockets, how big food and agricultural businesses are making your holiday meals more expensive. That was out a couple weeks ago. And the most recent one was on shrinkflation, when that bag of Doritos or that box of Wheat Thins or whatever it is, or iced tea, when the amount in the container or the bag gets smaller but the price stays the same, that's shrinkflation. They're ripping you off, and we should just say it plainly like that. So we have three reports. I hope you can look at them, and I'm not suggesting you have holiday conversations about reports, but making people aware of this is a big part of how we're going to bring about change and hold those big companies accountable for jacking up prices. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. Next up, we have Yiva Narcissian. She's an associate professor of economics at Franklin Marshall College in Lancaster. That is the second time. She received her BA in economics from Yerevan State University in Armenia, her MA and PhD in economics and mathematics. That's punishment. From the University of Missouri, Kansas City. She's a macroeconomist, working in modern money theory, post-Keynesian and institutionalist traditions. Her research includes banking and financial instability and fiscal and monetary theory and policy. She has published a number of papers on the topics of shadow banking, fiscal policy, government deficits and debt, and the new Green Deal. She will help us understand. You need to help me understand all these things I just read. In addition to that, she's going to help us understand how companies have set prices and created huge profits using the post-pandemic as a backdrop. Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for that introduction. And obviously very happy to be here. I will talk economics to anyone who will listen. Anyone who knows me knows that. So economists have been debating the causes of inflation in the past couple of years. And of course, economists never agree on anything. You put two of them in a room, you get at least 4 opinions, maybe more. In this case, however, there is a lot of evidence that corporate profits have been the main driver of inflation in the past couple of years. Economist Isabella Weber has rightly termed this a seller's inflation. And in some sense, it's gone under the radar for many economists too, because they've been looking at the wrong things. When they think of inflation, they think, oh, wages are going to drive inflation, or demand, too much demand, or money supply, and so on. So corporate profit margins have flown under the radar for economists as well. If you open any economics textbook, you might come away thinking that prices are determined in markets through the interaction of supply and demand, and that firms are simply price takers. They just produce their output and sell it at the market price. The reality, obviously, is that very few firms are price takers. Most firms are price setters. So when we see prices going up, we have to look at the behavior of these price-setting firms and understand what they're doing. In normal times, corporations want to keep their prices relatively stable. They don't want to lower them for the fear of inciting a price war with their competitors, which may be destructive for them and be bad for their profits. They also don't want to lose consumer goodwill. If you raise your prices, your competitors don't, then you may lose market share. And if your consumers don't see the price increases as justified, they are going to walk away. And in normal times, what corporations usually do is shrinkflation. They don't want to outright raise prices. Instead, they just reduce the size of the product and keep the price the same. However, the pandemic was not a normal time. We had supply chain disruptions. We had shortages of a lot of things like oil, later on wheat, semiconductors, you name it. And those constraints that I mentioned from consumers and from competitors that corporations usually have to deal with, they weren't necessarily binding anymore. They knew that their competitors were also operating in this environment of shortages and supply chain disruptions, and so they were going to raise their prices. And they also thought that the consumers would see it as justified. Everybody knew about supply chain disruptions. Everybody knew costs were going up. Everybody knew there were shortages. Who could blame corporations for simply passing on this cost to their consumers? They were just doing what businesses are obviously supposed to do. But there is a lot of data, both quantitative and qualitative, to indicate that they didn't just pass on the costs. They actually ended up improving their profit margins. And we don't really have to go far to know what they're doing. As the greedflation report indicates, there are a lot of earnings calls that you can listen in on, and corporations tell you exactly what they're doing. They're saying the pricing environment has never been better for us. I mean, they have to be honest with their shareholders, right? They want them to remain their shareholders. So they're saying we can raise prices and we're not being punished by our consumers, because our consumers see all of these disruptions and they think that this is what we have to do. There is no alternative. And of course, if other corporations are doing the same, then there's nowhere consumers can go, right? And this gets back to the question of concentration of corporate power and monopolies in many fields, especially food products. I will conclude by saying that there is one price that corporations are very resistant in raising, and that's the price of labor, that is wages. And so they've been resistant to raise wages, while on the other hand, they're raising prices. And that has meant that wages are playing catch up with inflation, and they haven't caught up, actually, if you look at the data. And that means that Americans' purchasing power has been deteriorating because of this seller's inflation.
Thank you, Yeva.
Thank you.
So I'm going to introduce two individuals at once. They are community residents who are going to share how this has affected the average Philadelphia or Pennsylvania resident. I will introduce them both and follow up when they're done. First, I'll introduce Maritza Guridi. She is a proud foster and adoptive parent of 5 and a grandparent of 2. Maritza is a member of Children's First Parents Empowered for Change Collective. She recently served as Deputy Director of Parent Power and Outreach at the National Parents Union. And she is a bilingual resource parent coordinator at our sister agency at Concilio, right down the block. Maritza has earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration and Management at Gwynedd Mercy University. And she will be followed by Marin Castro. Marin Castro is a proud mother of 2 children, ages 4 and 6. She too is a native of North Philadelphia. Marin has worked as a home health aide. She's currently pursuing an associate's degree in business administration and management from DeVry University. First, we will hear from Maritza and then from Marin.
Thank you very much for allowing me this time to speak. I'm speaking I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm in my 50s. I know what it is like to come from a struggling family. My mother was a single parent. And, I speak loud enough, right? I'm good? Okay. My mother was a single parent, so she taught me and my sister Marisol the importance of budgeting, especially when it came to food in our home. So I learned that, but not everybody has that privilege of having someone in their life to show them these things, the importance of comparing and buying in bulk and separating food and freezing food. for later use and things of that nature. So in our economy now, it is very hard. On top of that, when we live in areas where there are food deserts, the high price of food makes it even worse. When a family has to choose between taking a bus or walking miles to their local supermarket or just going to the corner store and coming out with a black plastic bag with something fried and that has extremely high amounts of sodium, is not a very healthy way to live. And we see that. I see that in my neighborhood every day, young people and older people. My mother is a senior citizen. She's 74 years old, on a fixed income, and she has to go to a food bank every week. My youngest grandson, his parents, one is not working, the other one is working 2 part-time jobs. They're on assistance, so it's hard for them to make ends meet. Personally, I'm going to share this. I was separated from my employer 2 months ago, so I am now on a job hunt. And if it wasn't for the fact that I have a husband at home that works, I don't know where we'd be. I don't know if we'd still be in our home. I don't know if I'd be able to maintain and feed my family. So it is very hard to see corporations, and I came from corporate America before coming into the education space or human services. I know that these Fortune 500 organizations are not thinking about us. They don't think about the families that are struggling. And I'm sorry to get emotional about that, but it's angering. They're getting Christmas bonuses. They're having their holiday parties. But we have families in this city right now that cannot feed their children tonight because the cost of food is too high. The cost of getting to that market to find fresh fruits and vegetables. And once they get there, it's all gone because there's not enough for them to share with their families. So it is very important that people in our communities get educated on their rights, get educated on the importance of them voting, making their voices heard in their communities, to say enough when a business comes in and tries to price gouge a product that is needed in their community, in their family. There should really be a lot of things in place to help control the cost, to allow for everyone to be able to have an opportunity to purchase something that is a staple in their home. You know, the cost of rice, the cost of beans, the cost of potatoes, the cost of fresh fruits and vegetables, it is extreme. You know, I could do without soda. I don't need it. Neither does my family. It's a luxury for people that buy soda. But when you're forced to go to a local corner store and everything has sugar, and I'm sorry, in the city of Philadelphia with that soda tax, everything is even higher. It makes it even worse. It is extremely hard. It is very, very hard for families to survive. Many of our children, the only meals they get are the meals that they're getting in school. So this holiday season, when there's no school, where are these children going to eat for almost 10 days? Where are they going to get their breakfast and their lunch, or even a snack? Where is it going to come from if their families cannot afford to buy them food? Thank you.
Well, hello, good morning, everyone. Excuse me. Well, hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Maureen Castro. Thank you for the opportunity to have me in here. Well, she pretty much said a lot of things that I was gonna say, so I'm gonna do a quick resume. I'm on my latest 20 to early 30s. I'm a single mother of 2 beautiful, handsome boys, and since the pandemic started, it's been really a struggle for me. If it was not for the help from my mother, I don't know where I will be at. To be honest, doing everything on myself. Right now, I currently lost my job. It's very hard for me to find economic for myself right now that I'm not working, and I'm the only person that my kids are dependent on. I'm the only provider for them, and I'm doing the best I can. That's why I came to Esperanza for the help and the benefits that they offer. They don't just offer jobs or help you to find a job. They help you find different resources for you to be able to have food at home, to you to be able to have money for you to pay rent, for you to be able to afford clothes, for you to be able to afford clothes for your children's education. You get a free education in here. And this is the reason why I came. As young as I am, is not stopping me for me to be able to fight what is right for my kids.
We're going to end with one more question we're going to ask Senator, and then at the end of that question, there'll be a press gaggle, which will be right here, sir. Right here. We'll do it right over here. Senator Casey, what does your newest report, Shrinkflation, reveal?
Well, Reverend, I didn't do that the right way. There it is. Yeah, Reverend, it does a number of things. It does point out both the reality that companies are shrinking the product and keeping the price the same. And that alone is worthy of a lot of attention. Because I think a lot of people have a sense of this already. It's not like we're telling them something they don't already suspect. But it's rare that you can have the documentation that we have in this report, excuse me, and the examples we have in the report. For example, we point out that, I mentioned some examples before, Doritos, or that there's a particular kind of iced tea made by Coca-Cola, Gold Peak Tea. It went from 64 ounces to 59 ounces. Guess what? The price didn't change. Price didn't go down. The same is true of so many products that we point out here, whether it's household paper products like toilet paper up 35% between 2019 and 2023. Oreos and Doritos up, 26% more expensive. So when you get down to those basic products, and it's a long list, which I won't go through all of, you can see the problem. So in addition to the fundamental problem of just jacking up prices generally, this shrinkflation idea is another way that they are ripping people off. Not making a big announcement saying, here's big news today, we're making the contents of the package or the container smaller, but the price isn't changing. Just want to let you know that. They're not doing that. They're not announcing it. They do it surreptitiously, and the only way a consumer can know about it is if they're carefully looking at the number of ounces from one week to the next or 1 month to the next. It's important to put a spotlight in this, and the only way that we can hold these companies accountable is to make sure that we point this out to people and to provide exposure. That's where we're glad that there are journalists here to get that word out about what's happening. So we're going to continue to point this out. We're going to be, and have already begun the process of asking the major organizations that represent these food companies a series of very detailed questions. The answers to those questions will yield more information, but the failure or the refusal is the better word to answer those questions will also tell us something, right? If everything's okay and you're doing everything the right way, then answer the questions, and we'll see if they do that. But we're not going away. We're going to continue to fight this week after week, month after month, to hold these companies accountable, because this is not fair to Americans to be doing this. To take advantage of a pandemic, to take advantage of what was rising inflation, thankfully coming down, to take advantage of that dynamic, to jack up your prices is inexcusable, and we're not going to accept it. We're not going to just pretend that it didn't happen. We're not going to pretend that we're going to focus on some other priority. So I just want to commend and salute both Maritza and Miriam for bringing their own personal story here. They didn't have to do this. They could have kept that personal story to themselves. And sometimes the only way a message gets through is when an American is willing to stand up and say, this is what is happening to me. This is the injustice that's affecting my family. And they've shown a lot of guts to be here today, to stand up and tell their story. And I'm honored by that and grateful that they're willing to help get this message out. Thanks very much.